What's up, everybody? I've gotten a lot of questions about the baits I use for spotties and when and where to use them. So we're going to go through that today. I'm going to start with like the clear water conditions and the colors I like for that. Most of the time whenever I have clear water, I like to start out with the brown. This is the brown silver, 1/4 ounce. Just gives it a lot more natural of a look with the clear and the brown on top. And we got the ice. This one's probably the most universal color because it works in muddy water because it's still got the profile of the white on top, but also still has the clear on the belly. So it's really good for clear and dirty water. And then the black and gold always does good in real clear water, similar to the brown because it's just more of a natural like crustacean color. These are all the 1/4 ounce size. And then I also like the green pumpkin. Just another really natural one. Just matte green with the clear belly. Works really good at like Newport and stuff when it's crystal clear. And then you really can't go wrong with the sardine green. This one just works pretty much in any condition, anywhere you go. Just a staple for most people. And then we also have the anchovy color. This one's really good like in summertime when it's clear. They key in on the anchovies a lot better in the warmer months. That's when I normally pull out this color. So in more like the dirty water situations, I want to stick with something that has a lot more of that profile from the white. So the ice is always good because it's like a perfect mix of the white and the clear. That's one of the most universal colors all around. And then the new watermelon jack does really good too because it's got that white on the bottom as well, but still has some color on top. And then also with the chub, the same kind of idea. It's a white belly with a tan brownish on top. This one's really good if you're in dirty water but you still think they're keying in on clams or crabs or something that's got that brown to it. And then the sexy smelt and sexy sardine are kind of similar. The sexy sardine is a lot more natural in my opinion. It's got more of a green, while the sexy smelt is more of a chartreuse blue. Both of these colors do really good when it's kind of muddy, a little bit dingy, but not too much, because you still got enough to stand out, but enough to look natural with both of these colors. And something about that chartreuse and green on the sexy smelt just drives the spotties insane. And we also have like the pink right here. This one's like really good when it's muddy as well, but like you still want the clear on the belly. This just gives off a lot of color and flash, similar to like the straight glow. I don't throw that bait as much, but this pink, it does really good on the spotties in the muddy water. And also like San Pedro, Long Beach, they really key on that pink for some reason. I don't really know why. So overall, my 3 favorite baits I'd have to say would be the ice, the brown and silver, and the new watermelon jack. If you're only going out with 3 baits to cover pretty much any situation, I'd go with these 3 right here because you got one, it's got a lot of profile but still looks natural. You can fish this one in the muddier water or at nighttime, all that kind of stuff. And then this brown, anytime you have clear water, anytime they're finicky, this one always seems to get them. And then the ice, like I said before, is like the perfect crossover because it's still got that baitfish kind of color of the white, but it's still got clear. So 9 times out of 10, I'm going out with these 3 baits tied on. And pretty much any bay, those colors work really well. And then we'll go through some of the more specialty colors that are more situation oriented next. So these colors here are more of like, they're still staples in my box, but are more of like a situation type of color. So first up we got the trout color. This one is like my favorite for crystal clear water, like at Long Beach and stuff, because they like this pink over there. but sometimes when the water is crystal clear, you want to have something a little bit more natural. And this one has the green on top of the pink, so it just kind of mutes the brightness of this pink down. It does really good, like at Alamitos and stuff, just because it's a real natural. Kind of looks like a smelt too, because if you've ever seen a smelt out of the water, they got a pink iridescence on their side. And in this pink in the water, because it's so clear, it shows up that pink flash whenever it moves. And it looks just like a smelt. And then next up we have, this is the Midnight. And this one, it does really good like whenever they're on the anchovies or like the grunion with that blue line on them. This one works really good. That it's more of like when they're on that color, they don't want anything else. But it can be a really good color, like at Newport in the cans, summertime. That's one of my favorite colors. And then we also have like the Shad White right here. This one, it's more of my freshwater color, but I do throw it a lot for spotties as well. Kind of the similar situation as the Watermelon Jack. You want a baitfish color, but still a lot of that profile from the white. So this one's more like you're imitating anchovy and more of the darker backed baitfish. And the Watermelon Jack's more like you're imitating the smelt and the mackerel and all that stuff with more of a green, bluish back. And then we also have the Red Crab. This one's like my wintertime morning color. Whenever you have low light and it's like colder out, this color does really good because they're normally eating the little crabs and stuff, because the bait fish don't get too active during that winter time. So they're normally keying in up shallow on those crabs and the other little red crustaceans they have up there. But I normally only stick to that one more in the dark because I don't really know why, but this color does really good like early morning. And then we also have like the Mint right here. This one is a big time spring color because when you have a lot of those smaller smelt, they get this real translucent but still a blue hue to them. So that's when I like to throw the Mint. And most of the time when I throw it, I'm throwing it in a 5/8 size just to get that bigger profile. But for whatever reason, that color in a 5/8 does really good on the spotties. So now I'm going to go through all the sizes and when you should be using each size. And I fish anywhere from a 1/16 all the way to a 1 ounce for spotties. And the main thing that adjusts that for me is the water clarity and the depth. So when I'm fishing like Mission Bay, real shallow, and there's clear water, I'll go to the 1/16 on like 4 pound or 6 pound tests. Keep it right above the grass. And this size, when you can't get bit on anything else, they will bite this. Because if you've ever fished Mission Bay, there's a lot of areas with grass, and it's only in about 8 feet of water, and there's a lot of like 1 and 2 inch long little smelt, and this is a perfect imitator for that. And then if you're fishing anywhere a little bit deeper than that but still over the grass and want that slow fall, I'll go to the 1/8, and this is about a 3-inch body compared to the little guy, and this one's going to get a lot of more glide and fall out of that little bit deeper range. You could go to a 1/4 in that if you want to fish fast. Most of the time when I'm going above grass, it's always a 1/8, whether that grass is between 10 and 20 feet, which it does happen a little bit. When you get a real high tide, that grass can get kind of deep. You still want that glide, go with the 1/8. But if you get that real deep grass and you want to get down to it, you go to the 1/4. The 1/4 is kind of like my main bait. If you want to cover any water column in the bay, this is the one you want to go with. It's where you want your like dock pitching bait, your mooring can bait, you're fishing over grass. It's probably the most universal size, and it's a perfect profile. It's got that nice smaller body. It's perfect size for those spotties. Imitates most of the bait in the bay. And then when you get that bigger bait or deeper water, this is the 3/8 and the 5/8. Now, I really like throwing the 3/8 and the 5/8 just because I like catching them on a big bait. But this, for most people, this is more of like your heavy current, getting down deep like San Diego Bay kind of stuff with the 5/8. But you can also take these baits and go pitch columns in 10 to 15 feet of water. And it's a very effective technique for getting those bigger fish when they're going after the bigger bait. The 3/8 gets a lot more glide because they're similar sized bodies and it's a lighter head. But personally, I like to throw the 5/8 the most just to get it down there, get that big profile where those fish are. And then last up we have the 1 ounce. This bait, it's a very situational bait. It's obviously a lot bigger than a 5/8 and a 3/8. And this body is when they're on like the big 6-inch smelt, that kind of stuff. Or you're fishing really deep water like San Pedro, San Diego Bay, and you want to double rig this with like a 5/8 if you're wanting to get down there quick and get down there deep. I've also caught them just retrieving this in like 15 feet of water when they're on the really big bait. They're not afraid to eat something that's this big. I've caught them all the way up on the 1.5 and the 2 ounce bodies, just with a smaller head in them. When I was first testing the watermelon jack, the very first fish I ever caught on it was about a 14-inch spotty in 6 feet of water on a 1.5. So they're definitely not afraid to eat those bigger profiles. And if you're ever going after the biggest spotty you can catch, I'd stick with the 5/8 and the 1 ounce because you're going to get less bites, but you're going to get the fish you're looking for. So most of the time I like to fish a single bait, just because where I fish you get a lot more of like the docks and mooring cans where it's a lot more you need to be accurate, get it right on the spot. But if you're fishing around the grass or mooring cans where you're getting a lot of bites, I'll do the double. So you set it up with 2 quarters, this one's set up with, and you can pitch this around. If you keep the leader shorter, this one's only about 1.5 feet. You can pitch it somewhat accurately. It's not nearly as accurate as a 1/4 ounce single, but you can get this into the right spot if you're doing like grass or mooring cans where you don't have to be super accurate. And what I like to do is set it up with either 2 of the same weights, this is 2 quarters, or do a 1/4 ounce on the bottom with an 1/8 ounce on top, or an 1/8 ounce on the bottom with a 1/16 on the top if you're fishing around the grass. If I'm fishing around more of the mooring cans or like main channel San Diego Bay, I'll do more of like just double 1/4 or a 5/8 and a 1/4. And that'll get that little profile of the 1/4 down there to 60, 70 feet that you have in San Diego Bay. And that's a lot of the times I'm targeting sand bass. Every once in a while you get some spotties doing that. But I really like that small profile and the big bait. It's just perfect double for that bay. It seems like down there they like that smaller bait a lot better. And like up at San Pedro area, I'll do just a straight double 5/8. They like that big bait up here more. Another way I really like to fish these baits is on the A-rig. It may seem weird because you're used to like a paddle tail on an A-rig. And these don't really do anything much on the retrieve. But when you put these on with a clip just like this, it comes on the A-rigs, these give them a tremendous amount of swim. Like when you're reeling it, it'll swim just like a paddle tail, but it gives it a lot of glide on the fall, just like a standard bait. And when I like to fish this, most of the time I fish them over grass, but they can be really effective throwing it into the back of the docks and working it out with pops and twitches, along with letting it sink next to the areas where you think the fish might be staging. For example, like behind a column or in a shady spot, you let it fall down and give it twitches to get it out of the zone. And that gets all of these baits to contract and expand like a real school of smelt or other small bait fish that are in the bay. And it's really effective, more summertime technique because it's more fast moving, more aggressive. But when they're on it, it's one of the most fun bites you can have on the A-rig. So I'm going to go through some of the setups that I like to fish these baits on for spotties and sand bass, mostly in the bay. The first one up, this is my 1/4 setup. This is a Californian 7-1 light with a Shimano Sahara 3000. I like to fish it with 10-pound braid to a 6-pound leader. And this is like my light setup for crystal clear water. Most of the time I'm throwing like the 1/4 ounce on this with real light line for like Mission Bay, that kind of stuff where it gets really clear. This is more like my light setup. You could throw an 1/8 on this if you wanted to. It's just more like my 6 and 8 pound rod. So this next setup here, this is my primary 1/8 ounce setup. I normally fish this on 8 pound test to 10 pound braid. And this is a 13 fishing medium light almond black with a Daiwa Fuego 2500. This is like for when I'm fishing above the grass or like pitching it back into the docks, real shallow water. This rod has a really light tip to it, but it has a really good backbone section. So you can really pull those fish out on the light line if they get you into the docks or into that deeper grass where you can't really get them out. This one will kind of horse them out of there, but still keep you from breaking off. And that's how I tend to match a lot of my rods. I like my rods to be a fast tip, but with solid backbone, just to kind of horse those fish in, get them away from the cover, but still have the ability to fish that lighter line on these light rods. So the next one up, this is my heavier quarter rod, my 10 and 12 pound rod. Still sticking with the 1/4 ounce bait, but I like to have a 30 pound braid on here to a 10 to 12 pound leader. And this is a 6 gill Akylos medium light. It's a 7'1". It's also a fast action rod. It's got a lot more backbone than tip section, so it just gives you more control over those fish. And then I have that with a Abu Garcia Zeta V30 with a custom power handle on it. And this one's more like my pitch in the docks, more like that your standard fishing with them. Just gives you a lot more control of those fish than like the 6 or the 8 pound. Mainly I'm using this one in the tournaments just so I can land the fish that I hook most of the time. I normally only do 6 or 8 pound around the grass, or like if the water is so clear and you're not getting bit on anything else, I'll do that as like a last resort. But most of the time I like to stick between that 10 and 15 pound range. So this next rod is like my 3/8 bullet kind of rod. So this is a 1/4 ounce body with a 3/8 head in it. So this is going to give it a lot faster of a fall, more sink, less glide. And this is like when you're getting fish that you want to just pitch the columns fast, go around fast, that kind of shallower water where they still want that small profile over the 5/8. And this is a Shimano SLX medium, also a 7-foot rod. This one has a little bit more of a moderate action, but it's okay because it's a lot heavier of a rod. And then I also have a Shimano Sahara 2500 with 12 pound braid to a 15 pound fluoro leader. And like I said, this one's more of like your pitching docks fast, trying to move quick, but still want that small bait instead of like the 5/8. I prefer going with the 5/8 just because it's going to get you a bigger bite, but a lot of times they will want that small profile in the winter or springtime. And this is mostly what I'm fishing, the 3/8 bullet. So it's more of like my 5/8 setup for the 5/8 baits. This is an iRod Coastal. It's a 7.3 medium heavy. And this is a 5000 Shimano Nasi. This is 40 pound braid to mostly 15 and 20 pound leader, depending on the water clarity. I prefer to go with 20 on these bigger baits just because it gives you a lot more control, because the places you're putting this are more like in tight to the columns or into deep structure where those fish have a lot of chances to break you off. So I like to stick with the heavier line. You could even go up to 30 if you wanted to, but I feel like 20 is about the max I'll go with for spotties. And you can land most all the fish on that you get. Even if they get you into the columns, you still have a little bit to get them out. But it's a lot better than like 15. But if the water is really clear and they still want the big profile, I'll drop it down to 15 if I have to. But most of the time when you're fishing a 5/8, you can get away with 20, even 25 pound if you need to. So for this next one, this is my main double rig rod. Like the double quarter, the double 1/8 and all that kind of stuff. This is actually a surf rod. This is a Kuma Rockway SP. It's an 8'6" medium. And I like that long rod just because you're fishing these longer leaders on here. It gives you a lot easier way to cast them and get you a little bit more accurate. And even though it's that long, it still helps in the kayak to have that longer rod with the casting and everything. It is a little bit difficult to land some fish on that just because of how long it is. But in my opinion, the longer rod outweighs the cons when you're fishing this. Just gives it a lot more ease of use and casting and everything. Especially like if you're fishing over grass, you can really launch the double rig on this, and even a single if you wanted to. I have that paired with a Pin Fierce with 20-pound braid to a 15 liter. And then once I hit the 3-way swivel, I drop it down to 10-pound on there. But you want some sort of leader going to the swivel, otherwise you're going to get a lot of tangles. And it helps if that leader is stronger than the dropper arms on the 3-way, because if you get snagged, you're going to break one of the baits off instead of your whole rig. So it just helps out with that a lot. And I like to go to significantly heavier than what I have on going to the baits, because if you do like a 10-pound to the baits and then a 12-pound to the swivel, you're going to get a lot more of it breaking at about the same strength. So you want to have something that's a lot different, like a 15 and a 10 or a 20 and a 15, and it just helps with the where it's going to break. And if you do that, it's always going to break at the bait instead of up on your main line where you're going to have to retie the whole thing. And you really don't want to be doing that in a tournament situation. And then this is a setup I don't use often, but this is pretty much only for the 1/16 and when they're like super light line. This is a Californian Trout 7-1 ultralight with a 1000 Daiwa Fuego, 6-pound braid to 4-pound leader on there. And this is like, this only comes out if nothing else is working. I really don't want to be catching them on this because it's easy for them to break me off. It's easy for them to get in the grass. The odds are not in your favor using this light of line and this light of gear. But sometimes that's what it takes to get those fish to bite when you have 20-30 feet of visibility and super cold water. Sometimes that's all they want. And this is pretty much all I fish them on. This is also like my freshwater bass and trout setup. So it kind of just doubles as your general 1/16, anything you use for that. But like I said, you really don't want to be fishing for spotties with this unless you're like going to have some fun. It's a very stressful way to catch them in a tournament situation. But sometimes that's what you have to do. And last up, this is my A-rig setup. This is a custom 8-foot extra heavy swim bait rod with a Daiwa Lexa 300 with the power handle. And I run straight 65-pound braid tied directly to the eye on the A-rig. And this is more like my inside the bay. You want to fish this over grass mostly because the braid's going to get you a lot of power, but it's also going to be a lot easier for those fish to break you off. So if you're going like more deep structure or somewhere where like around columns and stuff, you're going to want to go to a fluoro leader, like 60-pound fluoro. You only need about a foot or two, because this thing, if they see this thing coming down, I don't think they're really looking for a clear line above it. They're biting something with 5 arms and 6 blades on it, so I don't think they're too line shy. But I mostly like to set that up, the A-rig, with all quarters, and then I use a different setup for all my 1/8s, but still similar. 8-foot swim bait rod, 200 coastal. I hope this video answered your guys' questions. Thanks for watching till the end. Hope you like it.